Hey guys, number one Marmaduke fan here. I'm snowed in for a work day, so I thought I would do a quick. This is an actual shojo versus shonen for the first time in a while. So just real quick reviews of what I've read this week, and then these are going back to the library, and this is going in my keep forever box. I'm so excited! Like this, I pre-ordered this. It came out this week, so it's actually kind of new and relevant. So Dream and Sun by Ichigo Takano. This is the same artist behind Orange, and I gave the first three volumes of Orange a rave review. I haven't been able to find the next three volumes of it, and this is kind of a tone shift because Orange was about suicide. And it was actually extremely balanced. Like I feel like if you tell a story about suicide, you could, on the one hand, you could romanticize suicide, or on the other hand, you could make it overly sentimental, or you could send a bad message. You could send the message that people aren't responsible for their own actions and agency, and make people feel like you shouldn't make people feel like if someone kills themselves that it's all your fault. That's one of like the worst things you can do is blame yourself if someone commits suicide. And Orange had this really balanced approach where it was kind of like about the kids thinking about what they could do to prevent their friend committing suicide, like be reflective on their own actions, while at the same time basically respecting that it ultimately comes down to the kid's choice and they aren't responsible for the other person's choice. So I thought it was really fascinating, surprisingly romantic, surprisingly comedic, and very balanced. And Dream and Sun's a complete tone shift from that. So from extremely serious take on suicide to absolutely lighthearted, completely goofy, on purpose, silly little romantic comedy. It's doing it on purpose, right? But it's taking like these silly little tropes from romances and kind of playing them up. So the girl is tired of living with her stepmom and stepbrother, so she runs away from home and she meets like a weird homeless-looking Japanese guy. But it turns out he's kind of responsible, and he says, "You can pay cheap rent here as long as you like perform these three tasks for me." So he seems kind of creepy at first, but he's actually really mature and responsible, and he wants her to reconcile with her father and be responsible. So, and then there's like, there's the dreamy boy and there's the silly boy, and she likes the dreamy boy, and he's so sunshiny when he's around her, but he's dark and mellow at school. Oh, and I also noticed there's like a repeating motif of making lunch for the boy you like. I think Ichigo Takano really, really likes it when girls make lunch for guys. The best way to a man's heart is through his stomach. There's also like some cutesy bootsy stuff, like they have like, oh, find the little Poco hidden in the comic, kids, and hey, we're gonna reveal characters before they're even introduced because we're silly. Oh, the other weird thing is they talk about how they redid the art for this, and I knew that anime would do that. They'd have like cheap art for the airing of the anime, and then when the Blu-ray comes out, they actually update a lot of the art. I didn't know they did that with manga much. So I guess my review for Dream and Sun is I chuckled. It is, be prepared for absolute silliness and fluff if you're gonna read it. So Bleach volumes 11 through 12. I feel like I'm in the story arc everybody was warning me about because it's fun and exciting, but it kind of feels like we beat up the next guy, we beat up the secondary captain, then we beat up the super duper captain, and then we run into the company and the sub captain and captain of the next group, so we can save Rukia, right? So story wise, it feels like it's plodding on a little bit for my taste, but the art recommendation for this, like leaving aside the story side of it, the art is absolutely phenomenal. And I think I've talked about that before, but I just want to show you a couple panels that sort of re-illustrate the point, things that stood out to me, right? So often like this kind of very simple thin line style that's mostly white, not a lot of shadow, but then also for illustrations like this experimental thing where he's blocking out the whole form in solid black and white on one side. That's dope, with sort of like a Japanese brush technique. And then because it's Bleach, right, there's a lot of emphasis on solid blacks and solid whites. So when he uses grays, it's sort of like he only uses them when he needs to. Like often it's like solid black and white compositions. And then when like the intense energy is roaring up, then he gets in a lot of gray with, a billion lines resolving into this shading look. So it's really interesting that he's not just thinking of black, white, and gray as elements of a composition. He's thinking of black, white, and gray as things he can use more of in certain kinds of scenes where most of his art won't have this much gray. And then jumping ahead, of course, all of these illustrations where he thinks about positive and negative space. So a black shape around her, yet when her cloak overlaps that, it changes to white, right? That's really cool. positive and negative space is it's one of the elements of design, and it's maybe one that I feel like poster designers get this a lot. They pay really good poster designs pay attention to positive and negative space, and it can be easy to forget about it if you're just focusing on like filling the box with art. So volume 12 had a couple interesting little moments. Okay, so what interested me about volume 12 is he's trying to find a visual metaphor for something abstract, like sensing the energy of a powerful guy who's got, you know, tremendous spirit energy. So like have you ever thought about what does a picture of spider sense look like in Spider-Man's head? What does Daredevil's radioactive sense look like in his head? You know, what's it mean to sense the key of another character, right? Because we need a visual metaphor for it. So, you know, like solid black with white shadows as kind of a representation of the feeling. And then when he's sensing the guy's presence, it's sort of like a skeleton enveloping him. So it's not literally what the guy looks like, but it's sort of, I don't know, abstractly or metaphorically represents the sensation of being hunted, which is great, right? A visual picture that a kid can understand for an abstract idea that might be hard to represent in your head. And I really love the bonds of brotherhood subplot in this between him and Chad. And it's very funny that Chad is literally the Virgin versus Chad meme before that became a meme. So that just adds a lot of that's some added humor now that Chad is a meme. And I really like him, actually. It's kind of interesting that he's Hispanic, and so he's Mexican. Ichigo has strawberry orange hair, so they're both kind of outsiders. They both kind of have some Western influence to them, and they have just like this manly bond of brotherhood where where Chad is a pacifist, but he will fight on behalf of his friend. So Ichigo promises, well, you fight on behalf of me and I'll fight on behalf of you. So much manly feeling. All right, we gotta hustle. Twilight Princess, the brand new one. Okay, fantastic. Volume 6. So the only thing I was worried about with Volume 5 is, are they peaking too early? Because the first 5 volumes were so phenomenal. You've seen such growth in Link's character. You almost wonder, where can they go from here? And this is yet another successful volume where they're continuing to build it. So the first 5 volumes, we kind of saw Link as a, you know, shamed and humiliated character. He keeps getting beaten. Midna gives him no respect. And even when he becomes the hero and gets the Master Sword, he's still hesitant to claim his destiny as the Chosen One and the responsibility. He just wants to get home, and it's not fun being the Chosen One. So Volume 6 centers around Link finally accepting that this is his destiny, but becoming arrogant. And what's interesting about that is, I remember when I was playing this game and Dark Link showed up, and it was like, oh, I guess Link is tempted to fall to the dark side. And I just thought, that's interesting. I wonder why he's tempted to fall to the dark side. I don't feel tempted to fall to the dark side. Where video games, especially the Zelda video games, I think often have an implied narrative to them. But because they're games and you want to play them, it's sort of like you can't build that the same way that you would in a novel format or a graphic novel format. So the implied story in Twilight Princess is that the character has some kind of temptation, but you don't really get to see that much of it. And Akira Himakawa know they have to bring this to the front. They have to give us a reason for why is Link tempted to the dark side. I also like that they bring in Ashe, who is just kind of like a secondary character in the game, who you think, oh, she looks kind of cool, but then they actually like bring her in to sort of like test Link's mettle, and I don't know, they use some of the secondary characters so they're more than just background material. They capture like the nice creepy feel of the Ice Mansion level. So one of the things I wanted to point out is, as Link is growing, Midna is growing as well. So Link makes a mistake. He almost touches the evil object, and Midna calls him an idiot, which is kind of her character, right? She's kind of like a tough, tomboy kind of girl. She's not that patient with idiots. But then later she apologizes because as Link has become a man in her eyes, as he's earned her respect, she doesn't want to belittle him anymore, and she kind of wants to show him more respect, right? So that was kind of an interesting little way of showing that not only has he grown, she's grown. And then Link just basically makes a little, braggy comment that he feels like he can take on the world. He's going to beat Ganondorf, and all of these bad guys are nothing to him. And this really disturbs Midna. And it's a really small comment. Like, Link doesn't do anything particularly bad except just make a modest boast. And Midna instantly can tell that something's happening to him, and he's letting this go to his head. And so she basically leaves him to cool his jets, and he fights Dark Link. Now, I think in the game, Dark Link just sort of like shows up and looks at him, and they don't have a fight. They have a fight in the manga, and it seems to be kind of there's some elements of the Ocarina of Time fight with Dark Link in this, and it also kind of reminds me of Luke facing the vision of Darth Vader on Dagobah, and then defeating Darth Vader, but finding out he defeated himself. Running out of space. So the hero fighting his mirror image is a metaphor for the hero confronting his own pride. And no sooner does Link feel pride in himself than he's humbled again and reminded that he needs to learn from his masters. So, what I love about this is it didn't just get Link to the point where he's a hero and then there's no more growth, right? Because the growth of the hero is the most investing and interesting part of it. It gets him to the point where he feels like a hero, but then makes the point that just because you feel like a hero now, that doesn't mean the job is done. You've got work to do. Well, guess what? There's still growth. There's still steps to be taken. You never stop that process of growing older, growing more mature, growing stronger in your path, and you can never feel like you're just coasting through it. Fantastic, greatest of all time material. I'm going to keep getting them as they come out. That's it. Number one Marmaduke fan. Love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you later.